So I'm totally just asking for a friend.
Darling, you know it's not normal, and your friend knows it's not normal, and that's why you're asking. For those who haven't seen the video, this woman is asking if it's normal for the stay-at-home wife to have to ask for money for every single thing. And as a family lawyer, I can tell you that I see these situations all too often, where a woman has given up her job to take care of her family, maybe have a couple of kids, and not only is she not earning an income, but she doesn't have access to any of the family funds. And she is left having to beg her husband for money for every single little thing. And that's why I always recommend that women be a bit smart when it comes to potentially having children and taking time off work. But I don't tell women not to, because see, here's the thing. The usual rhetoric is like, this is why you should never depend on a man and you always have to make your own money. And the result is usually that the woman goes back to work very soon after having children. She's working full time and she's contributing equally or as much as possible to the family finances. And that seems to be good on paper as a reaction to situations like this, because now the woman at least has an income and a capacity to support herself. But what ends up happening on the flip side is that she ends up having to do everything, because statistically we know that women will do the majority of the child rearing and the home duties. Of course, there are exceptions, but let's just say they are a minority. We're talking more than 80% of the time, women are doing the majority around the house. And before anyone says it, yes, that takes into consideration the lawn and the gutters and fixing things. And I also understand as a mother wanting to be there for your children and not putting very young babies into daycare. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just having that preference. But understand as a woman that if you are going to be the one to step away from work and give up your income, that you need some financial security. Firstly, I think having a prenup is essential, and I know that people think, oh, the prenup's only to protect the spouse with money, but that's incorrect. The prenup can provide for the spouse who is taking time off work. It can provide financial compensation, maintenance, or alimony, or whatever you call it, where you live. The aim is to ensure that the spouse who has given up work doesn't walk away with nothing and receives appropriate financial compensation. The second thing would be to have joint finances so that you always have access to all of the money and you are not having to ask permission to buy basic essentials. You should be actively involved in creating the family budget and ensuring that everybody gets their needs met, including you. Just because you are not out earning an income doesn't mean that you are not working and contributing to the family. Therefore, all of the income that is being earned by the other spouse is considered family income and should be treated accordingly. You should also have access to some separate emergency fund, whether that's some premarital savings or some other fund that has been set up and agreed upon, so that in the event of an emergency, you have money to get yourself back on your feet. Or if the spouse wants to fight the prenup, for example, you have money to pay for lawyers. And finally, you need to keep up your qualifications or whatever it is that you do so that it is easier for you to return to work should the need arise. This can include keeping up with continuing professional development if your qualifications require that. It can include doing further qualifications. It can include starting a business that is loosely related to your field, even if that business exists mostly on paper, but anything that can pad your resume or make it look like you haven't just been doing quote unquote nothing, because even though we know that the stay-at-home parent is working very hard when it comes to the employment market, having a large gap in your resume does not make you an ideal candidate. But on the other hand, if you, in that time, let's say, upgraded your qualifications, did some continuing professional development, started a business, now you look a lot more interesting, a lot more appealing to potential employers. So use the time wisely and stay market ready. And the irony is the couples that I see who do all of those things are actually a lot less likely to end up getting divorced. Because usually, if you're with a spouse who is supportive of all of that, it means that he sees you as a partner and not as some indentured servant. And you have mutual love and respect, because the truth is you can never have real love when one person is basically in the relationship and being forced to stay. I mean, I personally would not want to be married to someone thinking like they would leave me if they could, but the only reason that they don't is because they can't. I would much rather be with someone who wakes up every day and chooses to be with me. Now, as usual, I don't say any of these things to shame the woman in the original video, but I use it as a cautionary tale to try to educate other women so that hopefully these types of situations can stand as a lesson. And I hope that more young women will know their worth and not accept this type of relationship. Because this is not a relationship. This is that word that starts with S and rhymes with Avery. But that's just my opinion.